G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Caitlin and I'm an American living in beautiful Sydney, Australia. I've lived in Australia for a little over 2 years. Not only have I lived in a house in Australia, but I've also had the chance to visit a lot of Aussie homes from friends and family. And the kitchens in Australia are so different from the kitchens that I'm used to back in the States. So if you want to see what the differences are between American and Australian kitchens, grab a bicky, grab a cuppa, and let's get right into this video. One of the most obvious differences that people point out all the time are electric kettles. Electric kettles are something that is in pretty much every Aussie home. Aussies love their tea, they love their instant coffee, and naturally that means they love their electric kettles. In America, electric kettles just aren't as popular. Partly because most Americans are used to drip coffee, not so much instant coffee, so they'll have a Mr. Coffee pot instead of an electric kettle. Now if somebody's an avid tea drinker, they probably have an electric kettle. We also have to remember that the watt convertage is different in the States compared to Australia, so you could actually get water to boil faster here in Australia than you can with an electric kettle in the States. Even though some American homes are starting to pick up on the electric kettle, it's still not going to be nearly as common as it is here in Australia. Next, let's talk about pantries. Over in the States, most pantries are built in, whereas here in Australia, I've seen a lot of freestanding pantries like this. Now, this is more common in properties where people are going to be renting. I don't see these a lot in people who actually own their own homes. But for a lot of rental properties, this is the norm where you just have one very, very large pantry on top of a couple regular cabinets. As you can see, these are also freestanding. No walls, easy to remove. But that does mean you have to clean all three sides of them when you have a rental inspection. Next, or when it comes to electrical outlets, there just aren't as many in Australian kitchens, and this is the case in most rooms in Australian homes. With newer builds, it's becoming a little bit more popular to add a few more electrical outlets, but in the States, I noticed that there were so many more electrical outlets in the places that I was used to than there are here. Like we have 2 electrical outlets along our counter, so we have 4 options total to actually plug something in. Whereas I remember I had counter space in one home in the States that was half the size of this, and we still had 3 different electrical outlet options in the kitchen. This is also the case in the bedrooms and bathrooms. You're just going to find fewer electrical outlets in a lot of older Aussie homes. Now, I'm not talking about the newer ones that have been built maybe within the last 10 years. I'm talking about older homes. Now let's talk about Australian ovens. This guy is the smallest oven I have ever used in any house that I've lived in. And that's actually pretty common. Australian ovens are actually quite smaller than American ovens. In fact, the average American oven is about 30 to 36 inches wide. The average Australian oven is only about 2 feet wide. And on top of that, American ovens have something that Australian ovens don't. When I first moved over here, I kept trying to pull this out thinking that this was a warming drawer, and it turns out that it's actually just a fake panel.
The chimney? Fake too.
Why is it there?
Charm. Adds a bit of charm.
Most American ovens actually include a warming drawer down here, which is supposed to keep your food warm while the rest of it's cooking. But in reality, most Americans I know use this for baking sheet storage and also storage for cooling racks. Now this one I purposely didn't show you guys my counter because we don't have a lot of storage space, so if I show you, I will look like I'm lying to you guys, and I don't want it to come across that way. But after seeing so many other friends' kitchens as well, Aussies just have fewer appliances on their counters in general. In American homes, you're used to having the Mr. Coffee pot, or a Keurig machine, the toaster, the microwave, the KitchenAid stand mixer, the George Foreman grill, blenders, juicers. I've seen so many more American appliances that are just out and about and used regularly than I see in most Aussie homes. And believe me, that is not because when Mark and I would go to visit friends and family, they would do a sudden rush to clean. That is so not the Aussie way. But most Australians, even though they have tons of appliances, they just put away appliances that aren't used regularly or every day. I think that's because in a lot of Australian kitchens, the kitchens do tend to be a little bit smaller, so counter space is a little bit more sparse. But you're going to see fewer appliances on most kitchen countertops in Australia than you will going over to the States. Like I say, if you have the space, you're going to find some way to fill it up. Now, Aussie fridges are a little bit different too. Not because the fridge itself is different, but when you're renting somewhere or you're moving somewhere in Australia, you actually take your fridge with you. In the States, that's not the case. Actually, in the States, in a lot of places, if you're buying a house, it's actually going to be in the selling agreement that you're going to have to leave certain appliances, including the fridge. For a year, these terms confused me so much when I was cooking with my husband, and that is grill, broiler, and barbecue. because these mean different things in both countries. In America, grill and barbecue are pretty much the same thing. You can go outside and you can grill, you can go outside and barbecue, but we're talking about using the same sort of appliance. You got charcoal, you've got wood, you've got gas, propane. Those are grills and barbecues over in the States. Broilers in the States are actually that top heating element in an oven that goes up like to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Here in Australia, that's actually called a grill. The word broiler doesn't exist in kitchen terminology here. You have grill, which is essentially an American broiler, and then you have barbecue, which can also be an American grill, but a grill in Australia is not the same as a barbecue. Can you see why I was a little bit confused with the terminology my first year here? Next up are kitchen scales, and let me tell you, I think I've seen these in just about every home here in Australia, whereas in the States, I only ever remember seeing these in houses where people either baked a lot or people were health nuts and measured out their food every single day. In fact, I didn't even start using a kitchen scale until I was in my late 20s. Now, I've never been to an Aussie home that hasn't had or used a kitchen scale, whereas over in the States, I think I've seen maybe 3 people use a kitchen scale ever that wasn't on TV. These things are just a lot more common here in Australia than they are in the States. Obviously, there are plenty of people in the States who use them, but not nearly as many as I've seen here in Australia. Next up, let's talk about coffee. In Australia, espresso-based drinks are king here. It's very, very rare to find drip coffee here in Australia unless you make it yourself and maybe a French press. Whereas over in the States, drip coffee is kind of the norm. In the States, you'll see Mr. Coffee Pot, and we also have Keurig machines as well, which is the same idea except it's those one-use capsules. Whereas here in Australia, because espresso is so common, you're going to find espresso machines a lot more often here. Yes, Nespresso is also a thing in the States, but it's very rare to find Nespresso machines over in the States, particularly in houses. If you go to hotels, if you go to people's homes, if you go to offices, most likely they're going to have a Keurig machine and not an espresso machine. It's not to say Nespresso machines don't exist in the States, they absolutely do, but you're not going to find them nearly as often as you would find a Keurig machine. Which again, Keurig makes more drip coffee, Nespresso makes espresso-style coffee. And let me tell you, I will link it down below for you guys. One of the best investments I have made since moving over here was getting an espresso machine. I got a little one-use mini one, and my coffee was so much better in the morning. I actually looked forward to getting up in the morning for a cup of coffee. It completely changed my mood when I wake up. So if you're thinking about getting one, I can't rate it highly enough. It was absolutely worth every single penny. Next up here are SodaStream machines. I know, probably not something you were expecting, and I am totally cool if Aussies want to come back at me and say that I'm wrong on this one. But I feel like over in the States, I almost never saw people use these. These became weirdly popular in like the mid to late 2000s, the mid-aughts. Then you see them once in a while. They're in Targets, they're in like Walmarts. But I've never seen anybody in the States actually use one before. Whereas here in Australia, half the homes that I've been to have had SodaStream machines. I see these and the refills and canisters all over like Big W and Kmart and Target. They're just surprisingly popular here, and I guess they just didn't pick up on popularity as much over in the States. I don't want to go as far as to say half of Aussies actually own and use one of these. I'm just talking about the places that I've visited and people that I know. But SodaStreams are surprisingly common here in Australia compared to the States. Next up are pie makers here in Australia. Now we have one. I didn't feel like getting it out of the box, but we do have a pie maker here. And pies are not nearly as popular in America as they are here, especially when it comes to savory pies like meat pies. It's very, very rare to find those over in the States. Typically in the States you find sweet pies. In Australia, meat pies are extremely popular. You can get them just about anywhere. And you can also make them at home. They're actually incredibly simple as long as you know how to make a decent filling. Really, all you need is a pie maker, short crust pastry, puff pastry, and a decent filling. They're actually very simple to make. And really, all you need is a pie maker, make the filling, and within 20 minutes you've got a delicious homemade pie, which is great for dinner. And because Australians love espresso-based drinks, milk frothers are also something that you're going to see in so many Aussie kitchens. So I probably should have actually cleaned mine off before I decided to show you guys, but this is a very well used and very loved piece of machinery that is in our kitchen. Now for American homes that have espresso machines, Nespresso machines are actually like full-blown espresso machines, you're probably going to find some sort of milk frother in their house as well, but it is not nearly as common because you don't really froth milk when you're using drip-based coffee machines. So I've seen milk frothers in just about every Aussie home that I've been in. Whereas I think I've seen maybe 2 over in the States in the 30 years I lived there. And last on this list are toasty makers. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm quite saying that correctly, but the machine that you use to make toasties here. In the States we have things like George Foreman grills and panini presses, but I've never seen something like this with the grooved edges until I moved to Australia. And for my Americans out there, I swear this makes like the most delicious homemade Hot Pocket-esque kind of sandwich that you will ever have. Some of these, like pepperoni cheese and a little bit of pizza sauce, is to die for. But toasty makers are not a thing in the States. I've never seen something like this before I moved to Australia, and let me tell you, I've seen a lot of really weird, unique, fun American kitchen appliances, and this was never on that list. So that's it for this video, you guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, I ask you to please hit the like and subscribe button down below if you have not subscribed already. I cannot tell you how much it helps me in the algorithm and how much it helps boost this channel. Already, I can't believe we've grown this channel to 10,000 subscribers. I would love to get it to 12,000 by the end of the year. So if you can, please hit the subscribe button. I so greatly appreciate the support, you guys. And I will see you all in my next video. Bye.